I woke up to silence, not the peaceful kind, but the eerie, unfamiliar stillness that made my stomach twist before I even opened my eyes. The kind that felt wrong. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and for a split second, I thought it might be Jordan. Maybe he was already awake, nervous but excited, counting down the hours until he'd see me walking down the aisle. I smiled, still groggy, and reached for it. But it wasn't him. It was a message from Victoria Beckett. "Mira, the venue has been cancelled. Your dress has been collected. It's best you don't come. Trust that this is for the greater good." I sat up so fast my head spun. I read the message again. Then again. The words didn't change, but they didn't make any more sense the third time around. My breath caught in my throat. No punctuation, no greeting, no explanation, just a sudden, clinical declaration that everything I'd spent the last year building had been erased. I scrambled out of bed, my fingers fumbling as I tried to call Jordan. Straight to voicemail. I texted him. Nothing. Again. Nothing. I stood in the middle of my room in my robe, surrounded by the remnants of the wedding prep, the half-open makeup bag, the shoes laid out perfectly by the door, the handwritten vows I had agonized over folded neatly on my dresser. A cold pit opened in my chest. I tried to breathe through it. Maybe there had been a mix-up. Maybe Victoria meant something else. Maybe Jordan had the answers. I called the venue coordinator. Her voice was tight, hesitant. "Ms. Langford, I'm sorry. The Beckett family made arrangements to cancel under Mr. Jordan Beckett's name. The cancellation came in yesterday evening. We tried calling you, but the number listed was his." I hung up before she finished. My ears were ringing. I paced, heart racing, trying to piece it together, trying to find the moment everything had started to shift. The dress. I ran to the closet. The garment bag that had been there last night was gone. So was the jewelry box. The shoes, gone. The veil I'd spent weeks selecting, gone. I opened drawers. Empty. It wasn't a robbery. It was precise. Intentional. I texted Harper, my maid of honor, my best friend since college. I told her something was wrong. Asked if she'd heard anything. Her red receipt popped up. No reply. My knees gave out. I sat on the floor, staring at nothing. My thoughts spiraled. Jordan wouldn't do this. Not without talking to me. Not without giving me a chance to understand. This wasn't cold feet. This was something else. And Victoria, she'd always had a way of making me feel just slightly out of place. Her smiles were tight, her compliments backhanded. I thought she was just overprotective. I thought she'd soften with time. I thought love would be enough to win her over. I was wrong. I pulled up the wedding group chat. It had been renamed, Harper and Jordan's Big Day. I stared at the screen. My name was gone. The chat history had been wiped. New photos were being posted. Flowers being arranged, a cake being delivered. My stomach lurched. I clicked on the live story one of Jordan's cousins had posted. There was Harper. In my dress. The lace sleeves. The cathedral-length veil. The same one we cried over when I found it. She was laughing with Jordan, his hand around her waist like it had always belonged there. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I went quiet. Ice moved through my veins as I stood up. Everything suddenly sharpened. The confusion was still there, but the panic? It was burning off, replaced by something colder. Something more focused. They thought I would crumble. That I'd stay silent. That I'd disappear. But no. They wanted a wedding without me? Fine. I was still going to show up. Not as the bride they tried to erase, but as the storm they never saw coming. The car ride to the venue felt like it was happening in someone else's life. My hands were locked around the steering wheel, knuckles white, as I stared at the road ahead, but my mind was spinning in loops. No dress. No fiancé. No answers. I kept calling Jordan, but it still went to voicemail. Each time the automated message clicked on, it felt like a slap. He hadn't even had the decency to block me. Just silence. Nothingness. Like I'd been erased. And Harper, her red receipts were still on. Still no response. Every few seconds, I refreshed the chat, hoping she'd say it was some twisted misunderstanding, some cruel joke. But she didn't. Of course she didn't. I pulled into the gravel drive of the estate and parked under a large oak tree where I wouldn't immediately be seen. The venue was exactly how we had planned it. White floral arrangements cascading down the stairs, silver accents gleaming under the early morning sun, soft piano music drifting across the air like a dream. Only this wasn't mine anymore. It had been stolen. Rewritten. I got out slowly, quietly, tugging my coat tighter around me. My dress was gone, but I wasn't about to let that stop me. I wore black, jeans, blouse, boots, not exactly bridal wear, but today I didn't need to be a bride. I needed to be present. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I crept toward the back entrance we'd walked through during rehearsals. I knew every corner of this place, every door, every blind spot. As I moved along the hedges, careful not to draw attention, I heard laughter echoing across the courtyard. Familiar voices. Guests. People I'd hugged, fed, toasted with. People who knew my name, people who were here for my wedding. Or so I thought. I spotted my Aunt Eleanor, wearing the pale lavender gown we'd chosen together. She was sipping champagne and chatting with Jordan's uncle like today was just another Saturday celebration. I didn't know whether to feel betrayed or invisible. Had they been told I canceled? Did they really not notice I was missing? Then I saw her. Harper. Wearing my dress. The intricate lace detailing I'd cried over in the boutique, the tiny pearl buttons, the hem I had tailored just last week, it was all there. And she looked radiant. Not because of the dress, but because she was glowing with satisfaction. Like she'd won. Jordan stood beside her in his navy tux, the same one I'd helped him pick. His hair was slicked back just the way he liked. His hand was on her lower back. He whispered something into her ear, and she laughed my laugh. She had the nerve to mimic it like she'd studied me, rehearsed how to become me. I didn't cry. I didn't fall apart. Instead, I stood in the shadows and watched. Every second burned into my brain. Someone snapped a photo. The photographer I hired. He didn't hesitate, he just clicked away like nothing was wrong. Like this was normal. I stepped back, my breath shaky, my heart pounding. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Not just the betrayal, but the performance of it. The ease. The shamelessness. They hadn't just replaced me. They had rewritten the entire story. I made my way toward the main building, slipping in through the staff door near the kitchen. I needed a moment to breathe. To plan. I couldn't just walk into the ceremony yet, not like this, not empty-handed. But I also couldn't turn around and leave. No, I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. I texted my friend Kira, the only person I trusted to be real with me right now. You won't believe what I just saw. They're actually doing it. She's wearing my dress. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then again. Finally, are you serious? Where are you? What can I do? I responded quickly. I need you to send me the audio files. The ones from that night at the wine tasting. Kira knew exactly what I meant. She had accidentally recorded a conversation between Jordan and Victoria a month ago when they didn't realize she was standing nearby. At the time, we brushed it off, assumed it was Victoria being her usual manipulative self. But now? Now it felt like a prophecy I'd ignored. My phone dinged. The files were downloading. I opened one and listened. Jordan's voice was clear. She's not right for the Beckett name, Mom. But I'll play nice until the last minute, just like you said. I closed my eyes. I pressed my lips together to silence the scream building inside. I wasn't going to crash this wedding just for closure. I was going to burn their entire lie to the ground. I had never walked with more purpose in my life. The ceremony had just begun. Guests sat fanned out across the open courtyard, sunlight glinting off champagne flutes and whispered anticipation floating in the air like pollen. The white aisle runner I'd chosen was already marked by Harper's footsteps. My bouquet was clutched in her hands. And at the front, Jordan stood beneath the floral arch, looking smug and composed, like a man about to win the game he had rigged from the start. But they didn't know I was here. Not yet. I stepped from behind the hedge line, slow and deliberate, and made my way to the aisle. Some guests turned their heads, confusion slowly blooming across their faces. Murmurs began, soft at first, then growing louder as more and more eyes locked onto me. I didn't break my stride. I didn't blink. Harper turned, mid-smile, her eyes widening as she saw me. And Jordan went pale. I walked past the guests who had toasted with me at bridal showers and sent me cards and well wishes. Not one of them moved. It was as if they were holding their breath, waiting to see whether this was real or some kind of hallucination. My boots thudded against the white fabric that should have welcomed satin heels. But this wasn't my wedding anymore. This was my reckoning. I stopped just feet from the altar, facing the couple that had tried to erase me. Harper's lips parted, trembling, and Jordan reached out as if to intercept me, but I raised a hand. Don't. My voice was calm, clear. I had practiced this moment in my head the entire drive over. I didn't come to beg. I didn't come to make a scene. I came for clarity. I turned to the guests. Since none of you seemed to wonder where I was today, let me reintroduce myself. I'm Mira Langford. I was supposed to be the bride standing here. Gasps scattered through the crowd like a dropped wine glass shattering on tile. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone. Some of you might be confused. But you deserve to know the truth. All of you were invited to my wedding. The one I planned. The one I paid for. The one they stole. Jordan took a step forward. Mira, this isn't the time. Save it, I snapped. I have receipts. Literally. I tapped the speaker icon and played the audio clip. Jordan's voice echoed through the venue, clear and damning. She's not right for the Beckett name, Mom. But I'll play nice until the last minute, just like you said. The silence that followed was suffocating. I let it sink in before playing the next one, Victoria's voice this time, as crisp and cold as I remembered. Harper is a safer choice. Mira is emotional. Unpredictable. We'll handle the fallout. Jordan, it's time we take control of the narrative. More gasps. Whispers rose into the air like a storm on the horizon. Harper's face crumbled, her mascara beginning to streak. Mira, I didn't mean for it to happen this way. Didn't mean for it? I repeated, locking eyes with her. You knew. You knew, and you didn't even have the decency to look me in the eye. I love him, she whispered. And I loved him too, I said. But at least I loved him with honesty. I turned to Jordan now. You could have just told me. You could have canceled like a grown man. But instead, you plotted. You let your mother orchestrate everything, like the good little heir she raised. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, flipping it open for him. This is the prenup you signed. Page 6, Section 4. In the event the groom cancels the wedding unilaterally, he agrees to cover all incurred expenses and emotional restitution up to an amount reviewed by civil arbitration. Jordan blinked. That was, we didn't mean. Oh, but you did. You signed it. I have your initials on every page. I had it notarized the day after your mother made a snide comment about me being a risk. I came prepared. I just hoped I'd never need it. People were standing now. Some guests gathered their things. Others just stared, slack-jawed. I scanned the faces, noting who looked guilty, who looked horrified, and who looked like they finally saw the Becketts for what they were. I won't keep you, I said, stepping back. By all means, go ahead with the ceremony. Just know it's built on a lie. On stolen time. On betrayal. I gave one final glance to Jordan. You didn't just lose a bride today. You lost every ounce of my silence. Then I turned and walked away, not a tear in my eye. The only thing I felt was clarity, sharp, cold, and beautiful. The storm had just begun. I didn't go home after walking out of the wedding. I drove past it all, the venue, the florists packing up, the guests buzzing behind me like flies at a feast. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Instead, I pulled into a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, the kind with cracked leather booths and waitresses who don't ask questions if you look like hell. I slid into a booth by the window, phone clutched tight in one hand, legal folder in the other. My hands were still shaking, but it wasn't from nerves anymore. It was adrenaline now, pure and fierce. My coffee came black and fast. I stared at it for a full minute before pulling up my contacts. There was only one person I could trust with this. One person who knew how to strike where it hurt. Noah Delgado. We hadn't spoken in years, not since college, when life was all late-night debates and poorly microwaved ramen. He had been the one who pushed me to go after what I wanted, who taught me that silence is often the most violent kind of permission. And now he was one of the best attorneys in the city, known for his precision, his calm, his near-surgical dismantling of powerful people who thought they were untouchable. I hit call. He picked up on the third ring. Mira? His voice sounded exactly the same, low, steady, a little amused like I'd caught him in the middle of something he didn't mind dropping. I need a favor, I said. Actually, I need a war. He didn't hesitate. Where are you? Hudson's Diner. Corner booth. I'm on my way. When he arrived, he looked like he'd walked out of a GQ ad in a world on fire, tailored coat, laptop bag slung casually over one shoulder, eyes sharp with curiosity and danger. He slid into the seat across from me without a word, then waited. I pushed the folder across the table. Jordan Beckett replaced me at our wedding. This morning. With my best friend. In my dress. His mother orchestrated it. I have audio recordings, contract signatures, and an entire digital trail that proves it was premeditated. Noah opened the folder, flipping through the contents like he was reading a menu. And you want to sue? I want to burn them slowly. Legally. Publicly. I want everything they've taken from me and everything they've tried to hide, exposed. He leaned back, tapping the edge of the contract. This prenup is airtight. I assume you kept copies of all invoices, emails, communications. Every last one. I even have screenshots of Victoria's messages and texts from Harper. And the wedding group chat that got renamed after they replaced me. He raised an eyebrow. Wow, they really didn't even try to be subtle, did they? No, I said, my voice cold. They didn't think I'd fight back. They thought I'd disappear. Noah smiled. Well, lucky for you, I specialize in people who think they're untouchable. He pulled out his laptop, and just like that, we got to work. I gave him access to my cloud drive. We began organizing everything: voice memos, timestamps, images. Noah flagged anything legally relevant and drafted an initial demand letter right there at the table. It was sharp, direct, and laced with the kind of legal venom that made my chest ease for the first time all day. They'll try to settle, he said, typing as he talked. But we're not going to let them do it quietly. We'll make the first hit public. I already have a title, I murmured. For the story. He paused. You're going public? Anonymously. At first. I want the world to hear it. Not the tabloids, not gossip blogs. My voice. My terms. What's the title? I looked out the window, the reflection of myself faint in the glass. The Vanished Vow. Noah's smile returned. Damn. That's brutal. Good, I said. It's meant to be. He nodded. Okay. We'll secure the domain, create an anonymous account, and publish a detailed account with receipts, scrubbed of names for now, but enough for people to connect the dots if they know where to look. Do it. He paused, then looked at me, serious. You sure about this, Mira? Once it's out there, there's no taking it back. I don't want it back, I said. They didn't just end a relationship. They humiliated me, stole from me, and they smiled while doing it. I'm not doing this to get revenge. I'm doing it so they can never do this to someone else again. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. Let's burn the house down. And just like that, the fire was lit. The post went live on a Thursday night. I didn't even read it again before Noah hit publish. I couldn't. I had already lived every word of it. Every sentence was cut from my skin, every paragraph carved from a wound I hadn't asked for. We chose our time carefully, late enough that people would be scrolling in bed, searching for something real to hold on to before sleep swallowed them. And we gave it a title they wouldn't forget. The Vanished Vow. I watched the anonymous blog go from 0 views to 50 in the first hour. Then 300. Then 2,000. By sunrise, it had crossed 10,000 reads. I didn't need to attach my name. The details were enough. The dress style, the cancellation, the sudden substitution of the best friend. We included screenshots of the floral arrangement receipts, the vendor messages, the group chat renamed without me. Nothing graphic. Just facts. Just proof. And the internet? It exploded. By mid-morning, Reddit was on fire. Threads with titles like Runaway Groom or Stolen Bride and Who is Harper Wells and Why is she in this dress started trending. People dissected every image, every clue. Strangers began to connect the dots with terrifying precision. They pulled old engagement photos Jordan had posted and compared them to Harper's wedding day look. The same veil. The same shoes. A wedding registry with my name still faintly visible in the metadata. It didn't take long before someone tracked down the designer tag visible in a zoomed-in image of Harper's gown and matched it to a boutique I'd tagged months ago. Then came the DMs. Hundreds. From women I didn't know, sharing stories of betrayal, offering support, asking if I was okay. Many of them didn't care who I was, they just saw themselves in the wreckage. I didn't respond to most of them, not at first. I wasn't ready. But I read every word. And I saved them. Because they reminded me that this wasn't just about me anymore. Noah called that afternoon. We need to talk about damage control, he said. Whose? I asked. Not yours. He sent me a screenshot of Harper's Instagram page. It had gone from influencer perfect to digital wildfire. People had flooded her latest post with comments, some cruel, some cutting, most just stunned. Is this the same dress from the vanished VOWS story? I used to follow you for skincare tips, not stolen weddings. Did you really think no one would find out? Brand accounts began quietly unfollowing her. One vegan hair care company archived every post she'd ever sponsored. A jewelry brand removed her campaign video midday. I didn't gloat. I just watched. I watched the crack spread. And Jordan? Radio silence. His social media went dark within hours of the post going viral. His LinkedIn disappeared by the next morning. People had started linking him to the Beckett Sterling Group, his family's company. A few screenshots of his past speeches, ones about integrity, commitment, leadership, were being memed to death. My personal favorite? A photo of him in a tux with the caption, Integrity? I barely know her. Victoria Beckett, of course, tried to stay above the chaos. She issued a vague, cold statement through her PR firm, denying any intentional wrongdoing and calling the blog post a fictional narrative spun for digital attention. Wrong move. Within an hour, the statement was dissected, torn apart, and remixed across every social platform. Someone created a TikTok of her denial with dramatic piano music and overlays of the audio clips we had released anonymously. The internet dubbed her the final boss of mother-in-law villains. A hashtag was born. #VanishedVow. By evening, it was trending globally. I sat in my living room, the lights dimmed, the sound of notifications pinging nonstop beside me. I should have felt satisfied. But I didn't. Not yet. The storm had only begun, and I was its quiet eye. This wasn't vengeance. This was exposure. This was truth dragging itself into daylight, raw and furious. Kira stopped by that night with takeout and wine. We sat in silence for a while, scrolling through the flood of posts. She looked at me across the couch and said, "You're not just the girl who got replaced anymore. You're the girl who stood up." I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that. Later, before she left, I asked, "Do you think it'll ever stop hurting?" She hesitated, then said, "No. But it'll stop controlling you." And maybe that was enough for now. As the night deepened and the noise of the world buzzed on, I leaned into the silence, a different kind this time, one that felt earned, not forced. The Beckett family wanted me gone. But I was still here. And now the world knew. I knew the exact moment the dam broke. It wasn't the viral posts or the hashtags or even the memes. It was the leak. At first, it came from a nameless account, just a PDF of a forwarded email chain with the subject line, Beckett Wedding Strategy. It looked boring, sterile, but the contents were anything but. Within it were receipts. Literal receipts. From floral vendors to catering down to the rush order to resize my wedding dress for Harper. Everything dated, everything time-stamped, everything pointing toward a betrayal that had been in motion long before I'd received Victoria's cold, clinical text. And then came the second leak. This one hit harder. Emails between Victoria and Jordan, casually discussing image concerns about me. Phrases like, her background isn't quite Beckett-ready, and optics are everything, and Mira doesn't project legacy stability, sliced through my screen like glass. Legacy stability. Like I was some flawed stock they were trying to dump quietly before the shareholders noticed. People online tore through it like wolves. Victoria's pristine image began to unravel. Screenshots of old interviews where she claimed to champion women's empowerment were juxtaposed against her private disdain for my supposed unpredictability. A fan-favorite clip of her from a televised business panel where she told a young entrepreneur to never compromise on ethics was now being stitched with, unless you're replacing your son's fiancée with her best friend, of course. The irony practically wrote itself. Harper, meanwhile, went silent. She locked down all her profiles. Her once vibrant influencer pages became ghost towns. Brand deals continued to slip through her fingers. People who once fawned over her pastel-themed posts were now filling the comments with snake emojis and broken heart gifs. One girl even posted a video holding a pair of skincare products Harper had promoted, whispering, "Let me cleanse the betrayal off my face." I didn't laugh. Not really. I couldn't. Because this wasn't a game to me. It wasn't some scandal I could move on from in 30-second TikTok soundbites. This had been my life. My love. My future, yanked out from under me like a rug soaked in lies. Jordan finally broke his silence 3 days later. Not with an apology. Not with remorse. But with a vague post on a black background that read, "We all make difficult decisions. Sometimes love evolves. Respect our privacy." I stared at the screen, bile rising in my throat. Love evolves? He'd betrayed me, humiliated me, conspired with his mother to erase me, and now he wanted privacy? I forwarded the post to Noah without a word. He called instantly. "We move now," he said. He just handed us everything. We filed a civil claim for breach of contract, emotional distress, and fraud. Noah had it ready within hours, polished like a blade. He sent it to Beckett Sterling Group's legal team, attaching documentation of every conversation, every audio file, every financial trail that pointed back to Jordan's premeditated deception. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about accountability. By then, the media had caught on. The anonymity we started with didn't last long, not with how public the Beckett family's life had been. Within a day of filing, headlines began popping up like wildfire. Beckett empire rocked by wedding scandal. Victoria Beckett's daughter-in-law swap sparks legal firestorm. The vanished vow, from blog post to bombshell lawsuit. I didn't speak to journalists. I didn't need to. The story spoke for itself. The truth had momentum now, and it wasn't slowing down. People were calling it the real-life soap opera. But behind every viral headline was a woman, me, who had stood quietly for far too long. Victoria tried to deny everything in another statement, calling the emails fabricated. That blew up in her face fast. A former assistant anonymously submitted corroborating documents that matched the original timestamps. And just like that, the internet turned. The same people who once praised Victoria's elegance now called her the final boss of mother-in-law villains. Entire Twitter threads ranked her quotes next to cinematic villains. My favorite? Someone posted her photos side by side with Cersei Lannister. Caption: "When you play the game of weddings, you win or you Beckett." The board at Beckett Sterling Group couldn't ignore it anymore. Shareholders began whispering. Clients quietly asked for meetings. Then a new name started trending: Elise Tran, one of the board members and, apparently, a longtime rival of Victoria's. I watched it all from the sidelines. Quiet. Focused. Kira came by again one night, watching the coverage on my laptop as she sipped wine. "You're blowing up," she said, nudging me. "How does it feel to finally be louder than them?" I looked at the screen, at the scroll of messages, the outpouring of support, the fury, the disbelief. But I didn't feel loud. I felt steady. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't being drowned out. It doesn't feel like noise anymore, I said. It feels like truth. And that truth, undeniable, messy, and fierce, was finally being heard. I always thought if I ever made headlines, it would be for something beautiful, maybe a book deal, a new business launch, something earned and celebrated. Not because I'd been publicly betrayed and made a national symbol of someone else's cruelty. But then again, I also thought I was going to marry a man who loved me. Instead, I was watching his mother's empire begin to buckle beneath the weight of her own ego. The Beckett Sterling Group headquarters towered over the city like it belonged there, all glass and steel and cold ambition. It was Victoria's castle. Her brand, her name, her rules. She had built it from nothing, or so she always claimed in every glossy feature written about her. What they never mentioned was how ruthlessly she maintained control, how many people she stepped over to polish her throne. Now, that control was slipping. It started with whispers, anonymous quotes from internal sources hinting at boardroom unrest. Then came the real crack, a story leaked to a financial blog claiming that the board was holding emergency ethics meetings in light of the scandal. And at the center of those meetings? Elise Tran. I remembered Elise. She was the only person at the few Beckett events I had attended who didn't look at me like I was chewing with my mouth open. She had once told me, in a tone laced with something like sympathy, Victoria likes her mirrors, not her challenges. At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. Now I did. Noah arranged a meeting. She wants to talk, he told me over the phone. Elise Tran. Privately. She's not doing this for you, Mira. Let's be clear. But she's doing it because she finally has leverage. I don't need her to do it for me, I said. I just need her to finish what I started. The meeting was held in a sleek, dimly lit office space 3 blocks from the Beckett building. Elise didn't offer small talk. She didn't need to. She was dressed in black slacks and a crisp blouse, her silver hair pulled back in a way that made her look like she ran the world. Maybe she did. For the next 20 minutes, at least. She looked at me and said, Victoria has ruled that company with fear disguised as vision for 20 years. But you've given us something she's never had, vulnerability. A chink in the armor. And the board is paying attention. I nodded slowly. So this isn't about right or wrong to you. She smiled faintly. In business, right and wrong don't mean what you think they do. But what matters, what moves people, is public trust. And Victoria just lost hers. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were shareholder complaints, internal memos, and a breakdown of plummeting brand perception metrics since the vanished vow went viral. It was more damning than any scandal she'd faced in her career. Her position is no longer sustainable, Elise said. All we needed was the right push. I looked up at her. And what do you need from me? Nothing, she said simply. You've already done it. By the following week, the headlines were unavoidable. Victoria Beckett steps down amid PR crisis. Beckett Sterling Group names Elise Tran interim CEO. Karma comes in white lace, the fall of a corporate queen. I watched it all from my apartment, still in my hoodie, sipping tea like it was any other Tuesday. But it wasn't. My inbox was full. Journalists. Women. Lawyers. Strangers. All of them responding to the movement that had taken root from a single story. My story. Jordan hadn't made a peep. His silence had become louder than anything he could have said. Victoria's official statement tried to maintain grace, citing a strategic transition and a desire to focus on family. But no one bought it, especially not the family she'd just imploded from the inside out. Harper? She tried to make a quiet comeback with a blog post about healing, but it was too soon. Too false. The internet wasn't ready to forgive, and I didn't think I ever would be either. Kira texted me, "You toppled a dynasty with a Wi-Fi signal and the truth. You okay?" I stared at the blinking cursor in our chat for a long time before replying. I'm not okay, but I'm not broken either. And that's something. Later that night, I stood on my tiny balcony, staring at the city lights below. Somewhere out there, Victoria Beckett was packing up her legacy in overpriced suitcases. And for the first time in months, I felt taller than her. They thought they could take everything and leave me with nothing. But now they had nothing. And I was just getting started. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and tension. I sat in the hallway, surrounded by silence, watching the second hand of the clock tick forward with irritating precision. I wore black again, sleek, sharp, intentional. No white. No softness. Nothing to confuse this with the version of me that once planned a wedding with trembling hands and blind trust. That girl was gone. This mirror was steel. Noah sat beside me, flipping through our binder, calm as ever. "You ready?" he asked, glancing over. I nodded once. "I've been ready." The judge's clerk opened the doors, calling both parties forward. Jordan was already inside, sitting stiffly beside his attorney. He didn't look at me. Not once. I half expected Victoria to barrel through the back door with some dramatic flair, but she was noticeably absent. Maybe even she had the sense to avoid the debris field she helped create. We sat at opposite tables, facing the bench. The courtroom was small, but packed. Journalists, curious law students, a few Beckett employees who thought they were being subtle. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Everyone had heard the vanished VOWS story, but now they were here for the moment the fiction met the facts. The judge, a woman with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing, entered and began with a calm but firm tone. "This is a civil hearing regarding breach of contract, emotional damages, and fraud. Plaintiff Mira Langford, represented by Noah Delgado. Defendant Jordan Beckett, represented by Louis Farron." Jordan shifted beside his lawyer, lips tight, jaw working. I could feel him glancing at me from the corner of his eye, but I didn't give him the satisfaction of a return stare. I kept my chin high, my gaze fixed on the bench, like he was a shadow I'd finally stepped out of. Noah stood first. Calm, direct. He presented the timeline, emails, receipts, photos, the prenup with Jordan's signature initialed on every page. Then he played the audio recordings. The ones of Jordan conspiring with Victoria, discussing their exit strategy, calling me a PR risk with too many opinions. The judge leaned forward. The gallery went silent. Noah handed over printed transcripts, clear as glass. "This wasn't cold feet, Your Honor. This was calculated deceit. Not only did the defendant cancel the wedding unilaterally, violating the binding contract he signed, but he conspired with a third party to replace my client without notice, transparency, or remorse." When Louis took the floor, he tried the sympathy card. "Emotions ran high, Your Honor. My client experienced a personal epiphany about his relationship and acted under emotional distress." The judge raised an eyebrow. Emotional distress? Or strategic manipulation? Jordan finally spoke, his voice a little shaky but trying hard to sound composed. "I didn't plan it to hurt her. Things changed. I fell in love with someone else and I didn't know how to handle it." "You didn't know how to handle it," I repeated under my breath. Noah touched my hand lightly, just enough to say, "Let him hang himself." I stood when it was time. The judge invited me to speak. I did. "I'm not here because I got dumped," I said, my voice steady. "I'm here because I was deceived. Because I paid for a wedding that was stolen from me. Because I was replaced without explanation, without dignity, by someone I trusted. And because Jordan Beckett chose silence over truth at every single turn. What happened to me wasn't just betrayal. It was cruelty, carefully wrapped in entitlement." I didn't look at Jordan. I didn't need to. When I sat down, I saw something flicker across the judge's face. Not pity. Not even anger. Just understanding. And that was enough. After a recess, the ruling came. In reviewing the evidence, the judge said, "The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. Mr. Beckett is ordered to pay full restitution for the cost of the canceled wedding, additional damages for emotional distress, and all legal fees. Further punitive measures will be considered following a separate hearing." Gasps echoed around the room. Noah leaned back, satisfied. I felt my spine lengthen with the kind of relief that doesn't scream, it exhales. Jordan's head dropped. His lawyer whispered something, but he didn't react. The courtroom emptied slowly, buzzing with murmurs and scribbling pens. I walked out into the sunlight, blinking like I hadn't seen daylight in weeks. Maybe I hadn't, not real sunlight, not the kind that feels earned. Outside, Kira stood on the steps waiting. She threw her arms around me without a word, squeezing tightly. "It's done," she whispered. I nodded, but I knew better. No, this part was done. But I was just getting started. The first thing I did after the court case was over was turn off all my notifications. The world had been so loud, pinging, buzzing, flashing with commentary and outrage and applause. I needed the silence. Not the cold kind I'd woken up to the morning of the wedding, but the healing kind. The kind that wrapped around you like a weighted blanket and said, "You made it. You're still here." I left the city within the week. Packed what I could fit into my car, shut the door to the apartment I once imagined sharing with Jordan, and drove until the skyline disappeared behind me. No big announcement. No farewell party. Just motion. And space. And breath. I ended up in a small town 2 hours away, coastal, quiet, full of red brick streets and flower boxes. A place where nobody knew me as the girl from that blog post. They just saw Mira. A woman looking for calm. A woman who walked into the local bakery on her second morning there and asked if they had sourdough without the sting of paparazzi behind her. I rented a small cottage with creaky floors and chipped paint. It overlooked a bluff that dipped into the sea, and every morning I would sit on the back steps with a mug of tea, listening to the waves say what people never could. I didn't write. I didn't post. I didn't even check the news. For the first time in months, I let myself be. But silence didn't mean stagnation. I needed purpose, something to pour myself into, something not born of pain, but of possibility. That's when I came across the firm, Anchor and Haven, a crisis support consultancy that specialized in helping women navigating high-profile personal chaos, divorces, public betrayals, custody battles amplified by the spotlight. Their mission was quiet power, dignity in the storm. I sent in a letter, not a resume. I told them I wasn't looking for sympathy. I was offering solidarity. A week later, I got a call. "We know who you are," the director said, her voice both kind and measured. "And that's exactly why we want you." I joined as a junior strategist. Not for the money, I still had funds from the court's ruling, but because I believed in it. Because I wanted to be the hand I didn't have to hold mine. The job wasn't glamorous. It was often raw and slow. We guided women through the chaos others packaged as entertainment, helped them reclaim narratives, protect reputations, rebuild lives. There was something sacred in the anonymity of it. No cameras. No clicks. Just one woman looking another in the eye and saying, "I believe you. Let's fix this together." Clients rarely knew my full story unless they asked. Some did. One cried and whispered, "I followed everything. You gave me the courage to walk away from a man who made me feel invisible." I just nodded. I didn't need to relive it anymore. I just needed to help them step into the light. My days became filled with strategy meetings, coffee runs, drafting statements and exit plans and future frameworks. My nights were for long walks by the cliffs, soft jazz humming in my earbuds, and the quiet thrill of building something again. This time, just for me. Kira visited once a month, bringing too many snacks and always crying when she left. Noah checked in occasionally, mostly with sarcastic texts like, "Still not sued by Harper?" Impressive. I kept in touch with the world on my own terms now. No more spirals through comment sections. No more compulsive Googling. I had tasted that kind of chaos already. I didn't need another bite. One evening, while closing up a client file, I paused to glance at a framed photo on my desk, a simple shot of me on the day of the verdict. No cameras, no crowds. Just me, alone on the courthouse steps, eyes closed, face turned toward the sun. It wasn't joy. It wasn't even triumph. It was peace. Hard-earned. Unapologetic. I had come so far from the girl who once trembled in a stolen dress's absence. That mirror had been cracked open by betrayal, but she hadn't shattered. She'd taken each jagged piece and rebuilt a self that didn't need anyone's permission to stand tall. People still sent me messages sometimes. Emails. Handwritten letters forwarded through the firm. They'd say things like, "You made me believe I wasn't crazy. Or, "Thank you for saying what I couldn't." I never responded directly. I didn't need to. I knew they were healing, just as I had. And one morning, watching the tide roll in as gulls circled above, I realized I no longer felt like a story someone else wrote. I was the author now. And this chapter? This quiet, steady rebuild? It was the most powerful one yet. I never imagined I'd stand on a stage like this. Not because I didn't believe in myself, but because this stage, the kind with velvet-backed chairs and spotlights that found you in the quiet, was meant for people who had climbed the mountain on purpose. Not the ones who were thrown off a cliff and figured out how to fly on the way down. But maybe that's what made it feel so real. So earned. The Women's Resilience Summit had invited me months ago. At first, I said no. Public speaking wasn't exactly on my bucket list anymore. After everything, I'd grown comfortable behind the scenes, supporting, strategizing, strengthening others. Letting my voice ripple quietly instead of roar. But the invitation sat on my desk for weeks, and eventually I realized I hadn't just survived what happened to me. I'd rebuilt from it. And maybe someone else needed to hear how. So here I was, backstage in a sharp white suit that didn't try to apologize for taking up space. No veil. No lace. Just tailored confidence and a pair of heels that clicked like punctuation. The host introduced me as a woman whose story traveled farther than her name, until now. I stepped into the light, heart steady, breath slow. The applause wasn't thunderous. It was respectful. Intentional. Like they weren't just clapping for drama or scandal, they were clapping for resilience. I looked out over the crowd and didn't see strangers. I saw reflections. Women with open eyes and tense shoulders. Women who'd been called too loud, too emotional, too much. Women who'd been betrayed, belittled, broken open. They were here not to forget, but to reclaim. I took a breath and began. A year ago today, I was supposed to get married. I woke up to a text from my future mother-in-law saying the venue was canceled and my dress was gone. My fiancé was unreachable. And when I arrived at the ceremony I planned, I found my best friend wearing my gown, saying my vows, living a version of the life I'd designed. Gasps moved like a slow ripple through the room. I didn't scream. I didn't fall apart. I walked down that aisle, calm, clear, and with evidence. I called them out. Not because I wanted to ruin their day, but because they had stolen mine. There was a long, pregnant pause. Then I smiled. And that was just the beginning. I told them about the blog. The vanished vow. The viral storm. The court case. Victoria Beckett's fall from her throne. I didn't sensationalize. I didn't dramatize. I just told the truth. Because the truth was enough. It always had been. But this isn't a story about revenge, I said. This is a story about reclamation. About what it means to survive public humiliation without letting it turn you into something smaller. About losing everything and realizing that what you were really shedding was the illusion that you ever needed their approval to begin with. The crowd was quiet, deep, undistracted quiet. The kind that meant they were really listening. I used to think my value came from being chosen. From being wanted by someone with power, someone with a legacy. But standing here now, I know the truth. I am not powerful because of what I survived. I am powerful because I chose to keep going. Because I stood in the rubble of my own life and built something stronger with my own two hands. And then it happened. During the Q&A, a young woman stood up. Maybe 20. Shy posture, but bold eyes. She held the mic like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I just wanted to say thank you, she said, her voice shaking slightly. I read your story when it first came out. I was in a really bad place. I thought I was the problem in my relationship. I thought maybe if I just kept being better, he'd stop erasing me. But when I read what you did, how you stood there and didn't disappear, I realized I didn't have to keep proving my worth to someone who couldn't see it. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. She smiled. I hope I can be like you one day. I walked to the edge of the stage, crouched slightly so we were eye level. You already are, I told her. You just haven't burned the wrong things yet. The room was still. Then the applause came, not wild, but warm. Steady. Like a heartbeat. Later, As I stepped out into the crisp evening air, I didn't feel like the girl who'd been left at the altar. I didn't even feel like the woman who'd taken down the Becketts. I felt like someone new. Someone whole. This wasn't the life I'd planned. It was better. Because it was finally mine.